reached Gaudacandra. We are located at 51 Colella Way in Newton Island. Our restaurant is in
Yes. All right. You are now being broadcast all over the world, including the Honolulu Temple on Oahu.
Right. Thank you.
So welcome, everybody.
A lot of background. There we go.
Gaudacandra Prabhu from LA, Los Angeles, is giving class this morning. Gaudacandra Prabhu, we are recording, broadcasting on 2 platforms this morning. So if you'd like to start, please go right ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Ramananda. Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Radha Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Radha Kunja Vihari Gopi Jannavala
6671 row.
Gopi Jannavala Yasodanandana Jannaran Yasodanandana Jannaran Jamunatira Jamunatira Jaya Radha Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jannavala Girivaradari Gopi Jannavala Girivaradari Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari 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 Jaya Vishnu Padmanam Sabarajacharya Sutta Sutta Shishimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Jaya Vishnu Padmanam Sabarajacharya Sutta Sutta Shishimad Śrī Guru Śrīla Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Ananti Koti Vaishnava Ki Jai Jai Jiskon BBT Founder Acharya Śrīla Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Namacharya Śrī Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Jai Vimsikaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Sari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Jai Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Shama Kund Radha Kund Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Ki Jai Jai Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Jai Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai. Skype Dham ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Vasudevi Bhakti Devi ki jai. Nirmaya Gandamaya ki jai. Bhakti Shri Krishna ki jai. Harinam Sankirtan Jai Jai ki jai. Hare Krishna Mantra ki jai. Prashadam distribution ki jai. Gaur Pramananda Hare Hare Bol.
Hare Bol.
All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gaudacandra.
Gaudacandra Prabhu?
Yes, sir.
Could you move a little bit closer, perhaps, to your microphone? It sounds a little bit far away.
Alrighty. Thank you. How's that sound?
I think better.
I don't even know where the mic is on this thing. Somewhere, maybe I covered it. Okay, Hare Krishna. So we're reading from the Śrīmad Bhagavatam, I guess. We'll start off with Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So today we're reading from the Śrīmad Bhagavatam. This is the first channel, chapter 5, texts number 7 and 8. And today's topic will be about the Vedanta Sutra, which comes up in these particular verses. And this is a nice picture of the Krishna, Radha Krishna, and the 10 incarnations. It kind of got there by mistake, but I thought it's kind of nice because this is the whole purpose of the Vedanta Sutra, is to understand Krishna, Radha and Krishna, and develop love. So today's verse, I'll chant this one myself, and then we'll chant the next one together, okay? Paryattana Trilokim Antascharo Vayor Ivatma Vakshapsi Aravare Brahmani Dharmato Rati Snat Ashyame Nunamalam Vichakshva. Like the sun, your goodness can travel everywhere in the three worlds. And like the air, you can penetrate the internal region of everyone. As such, you're as good as the all-pervasive Supersoul. Please therefore find out the deficiency in me, despite my being absorbed in transcendence under disciplinary regulations and vows. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Transcendental realization, pious activities, worshiping the deities, charity, mercifulness, non-violence, and studying the scriptures under strict disciplinary regulations are always helpful. So of course we know that who's speaking here is Srila Vyasadeva. And who's he speaking to? Anybody know? You know who Vyasadeva is speaking here? Who is speaking to?
Narada Muni.
Narada Muni.
Jai, I guess. Hare Krishna. Okay, so we'll go to the next verse. But here you see the nice picture of, here's Srila Vyasadeva, who's kind of despondent right now. He's writing all the Vedanta sutras, all the Vedic literatures, but yet is dissatisfied. So here's Narada Muni coming, like the wind is described. So like the sun can travel everywhere, and like the wind could enter anywhere, like the Supersoul. So this is a nice description of that particular verse. And then the next verse we'll chant together. Śrī Nārada Uvacha.
Śrī Nārada Uvacha.
Bhavatanudita.
Bhavatanudita.
Prayam. Yaso. Bhagavato. Malam.
Malam.
Enaivaso.
Inavaso.
Na.
Na.
Tushita.
Tushita.
Manye.
Manye.
Tad.
Tad.
Darshanam.
Darshanam.
Ilam.
Kilam.
Śrī Nārada Uvaca.
Śrī Nārada Uvaca.
Bhavatanudita prayam.
Bhavatanudita prayam.
Yasho Bhagavato Malam.
Yasho Bhagavato Malam.
Yenaivaso Natashita.
Yenaivaso Natashita.
Manyeta Darshanam Kilam.
Manyeta Darshanam.
Śrī Nārada Uvaca.
Śrī Nārada Uvaca.
Bhavatanudita prayam.
Bhavatanudita prayam.
Yasho Bhagavato Malam.
Yasho Bhagavato Malam.
Yenaivaso Natusheta.
Yenaivaso Natusheta.
Manyeta Darshanam Kilam.
Manyeta Darshanam Kilam.
Śrī Nārada Uvaca.
Śrī Nārada Uvaca.
Bhavatanudita prayam.
Bhavatanudita prayam.
Yasho Bhagavato Malam.
Yasho Bhagavato Malam.
Yenaivaso Natusheta.
Yenaivaso Natusheta.
Manyeta Darshanam Kilam.
Manyeta Darshanam.
Śrī Nārada Uvaca.
Śrī
Nārada Uvaca.
Bhavatanudita prayam.
Bhavatanudita prayam.
Yasho Bhagavato Malam.
Yasho Bhagavato Malam.
Yenaivaso Natusheta.
Yenaivaso Natusheta.
Darshanam Kilam.
Manyeta Darshanam Kilam.
Śrī Nārada Uvaca.
Śrī Nārada Uvaca.
Bhagavatānudita prayam.
Bhagavatānudita prayam.
Yasho Bhagavato Malam.
Yasho Bhagavato
Yenaivaso Natusheta.
Yenaivaso Natusheta.
Manyeta Darshanam Kilam.
Manyeta
Darshanam Kilam. Śrī Nārada Uvaca.
Śrī Nārada
Uvaca.
Bhavatanudita prayam.
Bhagavatānudita prayam.
Yasho Bhagavato Malam.
Yasho Bhagavato Malam.
Yenaivaso Natusheta.
Yenaivaso Natusheta.
Manyeta Darshanam Kilam.
Manyeta Darshanam Kilam.
Śrī Nārada.
Śrī Nārada.
Śrī Nārada.
Śrī Nārada.
Uvaca.
Uvaca.
Said.
Bhavata.
By you. Anudita prayam.
Anudita
prayam.
Almost not praised.
Almost not
praised.
Yashaha.
Yashaha.
Glories.
Glories.
Bhagavataha.
Bhagavataha.
Of the personality of Godhead.
Of the personality
of Godhead.
Amalam.
Amalam.
Spotless.
Spotless.
Nena.
Yena.
by which,
by which
eva,
eva
certainly,
certainly
aso,
asa
he, the personality of Godhead,
he, the personality of Godhead,
na,
na
does not,
does not
tusheta,
Tushita,
be pleased,
be pleased,
manye,
manye
I think,
I think
pat,
Tat,
that,
that
darshanam,
Darshanam,
philosophy,
philosophy
hilam,
kalam
Ilam,
inferior.
inferior.
Translation. Śrī Nārada said, "You have not actually broadcast the sublime and spotless glories of the personality of Godhead. That philosophy which does not satisfy the transcendental senses of the Lord is considered worthless." Please repeat. Śrī Nārada said,
Śrī Nārada,
Nārada said,
"You have not actually broadcast
you have not actually
actually broadcast
the sublime and spotless glories of the personality of Godhead.
the
sublime and spotless glories of the personality of Godhead.
That philosophy which does not satisfy
That philosophy which does not satisfy
the transcendental senses of the Lord
transcendental
the senses of the Lord
is considered worthless."
is considered
worthless.
Okay. Gaudacandra Prabhu.
Yes,
If
Prabhu.
you can just give me a second to mute everyone.
Okay.
Okay, which I've done. Now I just got to find you. Okay, now can you say something?
Haribol Prabhuji.
All right. I'm going to mute myself. Thank you very much, Gaudacandra Prabhu.
Okay. Thank you, Ramananda, and all the Vaishnavas for being here, allowing me to speak. This is the purport for verse number 8. The eternal relation of an individual soul with the Supreme Soul, Personality of Godhead, is constitutionally one of being the eternal servitor of the Eternal Master. The Lord has expanded himself as living beings in order to accept loving service from them. And this alone can satisfy both the Lord and the living beings. Such a scholar as Vyasadeva has completed many expansions of the Vedic literatures, ending with the Vedanta philosophy. But none of them have been written directly glorifying the personality of Godhead. Dry philosophical speculations, even on the transcendental subject of the Absolute, have very little attraction without directly dealing with the glorification of the Lord. The personality of Godhead is the last word in transcendental realization. The Absolute, realized as an impersonal Brahman or localized Supersoul, Paramatma, is less productive of transcendental bliss than the supreme personal realization of his glories. The compiler of the Vedanta Darshana is Vyasadeva himself. Yet he is troubled, although he is the author. So what sort of transcendental bliss can be derived by the readers and listeners of Vedanta, which is not explained directly by Vyasadeva, the author? Herein arises the necessity of explaining Vedanta Sutra in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam by the self-same author. Om Jnana Tamarandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshus Unnalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Upadamayan Vedanti Savadantikam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, so the verses again. This is verse number 7. Like the sun, your goodness can travel everywhere in the three worlds. And like the air, you can penetrate the internal region of everyone. As such, you are as good as the all-pervasive Supersoul. Please, therefore, find out the deficiency in me, despite my being absorbed in transcendence under disciplinary regulations and vows. And Prabhupada brings out the point here in the purport how these are always helpful. This transcendentalization, pious activities, worshiping the deities, charity, mercifulness, nonviolence, study of the scriptures under strict disciplinary regulations. These are always helpful. And then the next verse, Śrī Nārada said, you have not actually broadcast the sublime and spotless glories of the personality of Godhead. That philosophy, which does not satisfy the transcendental senses of the Lord, is considered worthless. So here Prabhupada talks about what our relationship is as the individual soul in relation to the Supreme Soul. This personality of Godhead is as a loving servant. So we're eternal servants of Krishna. And we will never be satisfied unless we engage in the service, which begins with glorifying Him. And this is the whole point of the Vedic literatures, is to realize the absolute truth. As a person, someone you can hear about and really relish his transcendental activities. There's no activities given by an impersonal thing, impersonal being. It's incomplete. So here, Prabhupada mentions the Vedanta Darshana, which is actually another name of saying the Vedanta Sutra. There's different ways that scholars have determined that there's different ways of saying the same thing. And we'll mention those in a bit here. So can you imagine the author himself of the Vedanta is not satisfied. So what to speak of people who are listening or reading the Vedanta, which is explained by someone else, not the author. And this is what's happening today. It's become very fashionable since the time of Sankaracharya to explain everything in the Shastras in an indirect way. In fact, the scholars take pride in explaining everything in their own way. And they declare that one can understand Vedic scriptures any way he likes. Actually, they say that. And this any way you like method is actually foolishness, and it's created havoc in Vedic culture. It's actually a science. And here Narada Muni is explaining to Srila Vyasadeva, when you have not directly glorified the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Maybe he mentioned it here and there, but the majority of his, philosophy was all, all these different flowery words of the Vedas, different yajnas, sacrifices, different ways of attaining certain things to become satisfied and happy in the material world, supposedly. But there's so many different Vedic literatures on everything. These are the instructions on how man should live here in the material world happily and eventually become self-realized. And that was the whole purpose of Srila Vyasadeva. He was concerned for the conditioned souls, how they can actually make progress. But even though he was doing all these different things, helping them become progressive, he wasn't satisfied because he was missing the whole point of the whole purpose of being here, the whole purpose of the Vedas, is to actually understand Krishna and to develop our love for Him. Because nowadays, as we mentioned, everyone explains it in their own ways, and Prabhupada uses one person, I'm not sure who it was, if you mentioned his name, but he said that when we speak on the Bhagavad Gita, we should understand that the Kurukshetra is not a place, it actually refers to the body. And the Pancha Pandavas, that refers to the five senses. But that's totally nonsense. There's actually a place that exists, it's called Kurukshetra. And it's not the five senses they're talking about here. It's talking about as actual persons. So all these things, they have to be understood according to their original statements. You can't just make up and interpret as you like. But Sankaracharya is the one that actually started that, to do that, interpret things in different ways. Here's a nice lecture that I found. Śrīla Prabhupada talks about this particular question. There's a devotee asking him some questions, and he's asking here, in Kali Yuga, the present age of quarrel, bhakti or devotional service has been described as the most suitable path for God realization. Yet how is it that the Vedantic teachings, with their accent on jnana, knowledge or intellectual speculation, are emphasized by noted savants? And here Prabhupada just gets right into the point, just like Narada Muni's saying. He's getting right into Vyasadeva, telling him directly what you're doing. So he's calling the so-called Vedantists, they're just cheaters. They don't know what Vedanta is. But people want to be cheated, and the cheaters are taking advantage of them. The word Veda means knowledge, and Anta means end. So the meaning of Vedanta is the ultimate knowledge. And the Vedanta Sutra teaches this. And this is a sutra, explains, is an aphorism. In a few words, a big philosophy is given. And the first aphorism of the Vedanta Sutra is Atato Brahma Jignasha. And Prabhupada explains there how now in the human form of life, one should inquire about Brahman, the absolute truth. So the study of the Vedanta Sutra begins when one is inquisitive about the absolute truth. And what is the absolute truth? That is answered in a nutshell in the second aphorism. Janmadhyashayakaha. Brahman is the origin of everything. So Brahman is God, the origin of everything, and all Veda or knowledge culminates in him. This is confirmed by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, 15:15. Vedascha sarva ahameva vedajo. The purpose of all the Vedas, all books of knowledge, is to search out God. And Prabhupada continues here. In the same verse we just mentioned, Krishna concludes, Vasudeva sarvamiti samahatma surulabhaha. When one understands that Vasudeva, Krishna, is everything, one is in knowledge. Before that, there is no knowledge. It is simply misunderstanding. Brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti samjate. One may begin by searching out impersonal Brahman, by the speculative method, and then one may progress to realization of Paramatma, the localized aspect of the Supreme. That is a secondary stage of realization. But the final stage is understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. So if you do not understand Krishna, where is your knowledge? Halfway knowledge is no knowledge. We want complete knowledge. And that complete knowledge is possible by the grace of Krishna through Bhagavad Gita. So here Prabhupada is saying how halfway knowledge is not knowledge. And this is what the Mayavadis, they claim, that this impersonal Brahman is the actual goal. It's incomplete knowledge, so it's not actual knowledge. So Prabhupada continues here, and he's saying how the whole Vedanta Sutra is a description of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But because in this Kali Yuga people will not be able to understand or be able to study Vedanta Sutra nicely on account of lack of education. So here Srila Vyasadeva personally wrote a commentary on the Vedanta Sutra, and that commentary is the Srimad Bhagavatam. Vyasam Brahma Sutranam. So Srimad Bhagavatam is the real commentary on the Vedanta Sutra, written by the same author, Vyasadeva, under the instruction of Nārada, his spiritual master. So that's what this verse is, where we're now studying on this topic right now, in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So Srimad Bhagavatam begins with the same aphorism as the Vedanta Sutra, Janmayadhyasya yataha, and then continues, Anvayaditaratas chatiswabi naswarat. So actually, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Vedanta Sutra is explained by the author of the Vedanta Sutra. But some rascals, without understanding the Vedanta Sutra, without reading the natural commentary on the Vedanta Sutra, are posing themselves as Vedantists and misguiding people. And because people are not educated, they're accepting these rascals as Vedantists. Actually, the so-called Vedantists are bluffers. They are not Vedantists. They do not know anything of the Vedanta. The Vedanta Sutra is explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And if we take Srimad Bhagavatam as the real explanation of the Vedanta Sutra, we can understand what Vedanta is. But if we take shelter of the bluffers, then we will not learn Vedanta. People do not know anything, so they can be bluffed and cheated by anyone. But now they should learn from the Krishna consciousness movement what Vedanta is and what the explanation of Vedanta is. Then they will be benefited. So this is actually a very important point here, that the whole purpose of the Vedanta is that we become satisfied, as we mentioned, happy, and to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And we have the method. We actually have the proper commentary on all the Vedanta Sutras, and that is the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's the real commentary Srila Prabhupada explains here. And it's written by the same author, Srila Vyasadeva. And because people are born in ignorance, they can be cheated by anyone. They don't know anything really. They're not trained. So this shows you the importance of the Krishna consciousness movement and how we actually are so fortunate to have the real explanation of Vedanta, and that we don't really need to read all the Vedas, try to understand them and go into detail how they, trying to get knowledge. No, we just read the Srimad Bhagavatam, and this is the real essence, the cream of all the Vedas. So here, this is an interesting chapter of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. This is the chapter 7, I believe, of the Adi-lila, where Lord Chaitanya and Five Features, I think, is the title of the chapter. And this is very interesting, where this is the pastime when this Brahmana, Lord Chaitanya's followers, were very upset because the Mayavadi sannyasis were criticizing Lord Chaitanya for being a sentimentalist and a fanatic, and just going around and chanting with low-class people, and not being serious and studying the Vedas like we are. We're studying the Vedanta Sutras, and why doesn't he associate with us? He's actually, they were just criticizing him. So the Brahmin invited him to his home where all the sannyasis were. And Lord Chaitanya coming there out of his mercy because of the devotees' desire to actually liberate these particular, Mayavadi sannyasis. He decided to come there. So Lord Chaitanya came there, washed his feet, as they do in the custom. They walk around barefoot, so they wash their feet before they enter the home. And so he did that, washed his feet. Then he sat down right there where they put all the, where they just wash the feet, and where there were probably some sandals in those days, I guess, too. So he was just sitting there, and they began to emanate this amazing effulgence. And all these Mayavadi sannyasis were so attracted. And the leader of the Mayavadi sannyasis, Parkasananda, I think his name was, he came and said, "Why are you being depressed and sitting down like this in this particular place?" And he said, "Well, I'm from a lower type of sannyas, and you guys are more elevated, so I don't feel myself fit to sit next to you." So this is the humility Lord Chaitanya taught, that actually, for one to gain real knowledge, he must be humble. And he's teaching that.
You know what? I'm so sorry, because you're on a roll. It's a wonderful class. But
Can you hear me?
Is there any way to increase your volume?
I don't know. I could try. Let me see where the mic is on this thing. I don't even know. Oh, it's on top of the thing.
Oh, now you're coming in. There you go.
The mic's on top of the computer, and this computer monitor is pretty big. So let me tilt it down and see if you can hear me better. Can you hear me now?
About the same.
I have to be right on top of the computer.
Anyway, just a second ago, it came in pretty loud.
Yeah, because I was right on top of the mic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's coming through. It's just a little low.
Okay, sorry. I'll try to speak louder. So this is a nice pastime. We'll see some pictures, so it won't be so boring that I could just speak about it. But this is a nice verse where when Lord Chaitanya began to explain, they asked him some questions about Vedanta philosophy, and this is one of the things that he said. And this is Lord Chaitanya speaking. He said, Vedanta philosophy consists of words spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan, in the form of Vyasa Deva. So here it explains very nicely in the purport here, Prabhupada is describing. The Vedanta Sutra, which consists of aphorisms revealing the method of understanding Vedic knowledge, is the concise form of all Vedic knowledge. It begins with the words Atato Brahma Jignasya. And that's what Prabhupada is explaining in his lecture. Now is the time to inquire about the Absolute Truth. See, but they have their own interpretations of the Absolute Truth. That's the thing about the Sanskrit terms and knowledges, which Shankaracharya actually started, is to interpret them in your own way. But that's not what's meant. Here it's now to inquire about the Absolute Truth, which is Krishna. So it goes on. The human form of life is especially meant for this purpose, and therefore the Vedanta Sutra very concisely explains the human mission. This is confirmed by the words of the Vayu and Skanda Puranas, which define a sutra as follows. Here's some very nice, it describes a sutra, what a sutra is. It's very powerful. So, apaksaram asandigdam sadavat vispato mukham astobam anavadyam cha sutram sutra vido vidu. Translation. A sutra is a compilation of aphorisms that express the essence of all knowledge in a minimum of words. It must be universally applicable and faultless in its linguistic presentation. So you can see they have these aphorisms. It's compact. It has the essence of knowledge. So you can see these words. And then what happens is people take these words, instead of getting the real meaning, they imagine meanings to these words, and then they misinterpret things. So this is the problem. So anyone familiar with such sutras must be aware of the Vedanta Sutra, which is well known among scholars by the following additional names. So this is what Prabhupada, how he mentions in the purport of today's verse, number 6, Vedanta Darshana is one of the additional name of the Vedanta Sutra, and there's 6 of them here altogether. The Brahma Sutra, the Sariraka, the Vyasa Sutra, the Badarayana Sutra, the Uttara Mimamsa, and the Vedanta Darshana. So that's what was Prabhupada mentioned in that particular verse. So just see the scholarliness of Srila Prabhupada. So here, it describes in the same purport, it's a very long purport, but I just cut out this part. And it's nice how he describes the Vedanta Sutra as having 4 different chapters, called adhyayas. And there are 4 divisions, the padas. So it describes here that the Vedanta Sutra may be referred as Sodasapada, or 16 divisions of aphorisms. And the theme of each and every division is fully described in terms of 5 different subject matters, which are technically called pratigna, and it mentions them here. Every theme must be necessarily be explained with reference to pratigna, or a solemn declaration of the purpose of the treatise. The solemn declaration given in the beginning of the Vedanta Sutra is Atato Brahma Jignasya, which indicates that this book was written with the solemn declaration to inquire about the Absolute Truth. So just see again and again, Prabhupada's explaining here, what was the whole purpose? What's the declaration? It's to find out about the Absolute Truth. So similarly, reasons must be expressed. Hetu examples must be given in terms of various facts. The theme was gradually brought nearer for understanding, and finally be supported by the Shastras. So that's important. Just here to give you some understanding of the Vedanta Sutra, which is very nicely described in this chapter of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And here it describes how it's broken up into 4 chapters of Vedanta Sutra. And it shows about these different, as we know, there's the first 2 chapters. It's described here as known as the Sambandha Gyan, or knowledge of our relationship of Godhead. And then the 3rd chapter describes how one can act in that relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that's called the Abhideya Gyan. Sorry I didn't highlight these this time. I could have highlighted them, made it more clear. But I was kind of in a rush today. So the relationship of the living entity and the Supreme Lord is described by Śrī Prabhu. And that's Jivera Sarupahaya Krishnera Nityadas, the famous quote from Lord Chaitanya. The living entity is an eternal servant of Krishna, the Supreme God. Therefore, to act in that relationship, one must perform sadhana bhakti, or the prescribed duties of service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that's called the Abhideya Gyan. So the 4th chapter, that describes the result of all this devotional service, and that's Prayojana Gyan. The ultimate goal of life is to go back home, back to Godhead. So this is the Vedanta Sutra. This indicates that's our ultimate goal. This is the goal, is to develop, this loving relationship with Krishna. And how could you have a loving relationship with someone that, is impersonal? That's not a person. That's not possible. Not possible at all. So here it describes a little bit about Vyasadeva. He's a very powerful incarnation of Narayan. And he actually compiled the Vedanta Sutras to protect them from the unauthorized commentaries. He compiled them, but in order to protect them, he personally composed the Srimad Bhagavatam. And that's because of Narada Muni. We saw the picture there where Narada Muni is instructing him. Even though, look, he's a powerful incarnation of Narayan, but yet still he has a spiritual master and he follows his authority. In the same way, we see Krishna also accepted a spiritual master, and he followed his instructions. And we also are taught, by Srila Prabhupada, followed the instructions of his spiritual master to go out and preach and spread this message to the Western world. So he used an example. So also we have the spiritual masters, and therefore if we follow them also, we will become successful. So this is an important point. I just wanted to bring this out. And it describes how there's different Vaishnavacharyas and how the Sankara commentaries, they describe the sutras in an impersonal way without reference to Vishnu Bhakti or devotional service. And Prabhupada describes here how generally people are very much appreciate this Sarika Vyas, or the impersonal description of the Vedanta Sutra. But all commentaries that are devoid of devotional service to Lord Vishnu must be considered to differ in purpose from the original Vedanta Sutra. So here Lord Chaitanya definitely confirmed that the commentaries are Vyasas written by the Vaishnavacharyas on the basis of devotional service to Lord Vishnu, and not the Sarika Vyas of Sankaracharya give the actual explanation of the Vedanta Sutra. So you can imagine this. This is Lord Chaitanya amongst all these impersonalist sannyasis, and is explaining, he's telling them directly, what's going on. And they criticize Lord Chaitanya for, being a sentimentalist, chanting and dancing, not sitting down and reading Vedanta philosophy. Because we see the example of Lord Chaitanya, he was following the orders of his spiritual master. His spiritual master told him, "Oh, you are, you are a fool. You're not qualified to study Vedanta. So therefore, just chant this Hare Krishna Maha mantra." And then when he started chanting, he began to experience these ecstatic symptoms. As described, tears going from the eyes, dancing and chanting, and all these ecstatic, association with devotees like that. So he went to his guru and said, "What's going on? I'm chanting and I'm following this mantra, following your order, and then look what happens to me. I'm going crazy." He's explaining this. Lord Chaitanya is explaining this to the Mayavadi sannyasis, because they asked him, "Why don't you study the Vedanta Sutra with us?" And he said, "My spiritual master said I'm a great fool that simply chant this Hare Krishna mantra And this is the way we get liberated in this Kali Yuga, this age, is simply by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. It's the essence of all the Vedas, actually. Everything is there. The whole Vedanta Sutras, everything is in there. It's the essence of everything. It's Krishna himself. So he did this, and he was explaining to the Mayavadi sannyasis that, I don't try to do this. I mean, it just happens naturally when I chant. I dance and I, sing and do all these things, and it's just the mantra causes it. So he was explaining that to them, that it was by the order of his spiritual master, which he developed love of God. And here's the picture where Lord Chaitanya was very humbly sitting where they washed their feet. And here the leader of the sannyasis, Prakashananda Saraswati, I think his name was, that came, and they're so attracted to him. You know how sannyasis, they address each other as Narayan, they think each other Narayan, or they'll eventually become Narayan. So they saw Lord Chaitanya and they say, wow, you are Narayan. Please come, you're so beautiful. And so here he's performing some Adhyata Sukriti by being very kind and speaking nicely to Lord Chaitanya and offering him a seat like this. And this way they're inviting Lord Chaitanya to come and to sit amongst them and discuss what real Vedanta philosophy is. So here's a nice painting describing that, showing that. Lord Chaitanya is telling them that, real Vedanta Sutra means, the direct words given by Srila Vyasadeva, about how we can develop our loving relationship with Krishna. But you have to go by the direct meanings, not by the imaginary meanings and interpreted by the Sankara philosophy. So here he was actually changing their minds, and they all became great devotees. Here's another picture showing that. Lord Chaitanya's effulgence amongst all the Mayavadi sannyasis, describing to them that, this is the real Vedanta philosophy. Just see, Lord Chaitanya had all these the Vedic understandings because he followed the order of his spiritual master and simply got all knowledge by being obedient in that way. So, and he explained to them, this Sripad Sankaracharya, he's described all these Vedic literatures in an indirect meaning. And one who hears it, they will be ruined. So he's actually telling us that. But he's saying, Sankaracharya is actually not at fault because it was the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he told him to come and cover the real purpose of the Vedas. For this reason. And even Sankaracharya himself told them that you should just worship Krishna. This is not going to help you. All this word jugglery and everything. Yet they didn't even follow his instructions. And even Lord Shiva told his wife that this Mayavadi philosophy that I'm going to be coming and preaching, it's impious. It's a Sat Shastra. And it's covered Buddhism. And he said, in Kali Yuga, I'll assume the form of a Brahmana, and I'll teach this imagined Mayavadi philosophy in order to cheat the atheists. So what he does is he describes the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be without form and without qualities. And then similarly, he explains this Mayavadi philosophy in order to mislead the entire population towards atheism by denying the personal form of the Lord. So this is a great purpose, I guess, in Kali Yuga they had, was to mislead the people in general by propounding imaginary meanings for the Vedas to bewilder them. Because the Vedas, I guess the demons, they want an excuse to not to serve Krishna. And Krishna is so kind, he gives them this misinterpretation. But if we understand, if we actually go through as Prabhupada writes in one of the purports to this particular chapter, how he quotes Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's comment, he said that if you take the direct meaning of these things, even from the dictionaries, not the indirect meaning, which is imaginary, he's saying that they should take the direct meaning from the dictionaries, not imagine different things. And Prabhupada uses that same analogy of how this personality was saying that Kukshetra means body, like that, but that's actually an imagined meaning, which is totally off the wall. So again, Lord Shiva is explaining to his wife that, you know, he says, my dear wife, hear my explanations of how I have spread ignorance through my body philosophy. Simply by hearing it, even an advanced scholar will fall down. In this philosophy, which is certainly very inauspicious for people in general, I have misrepresented the real meaning of the Vedas and recommend that one give up all activities in order to achieve freedom from karma. In this Mayavadi philosophy, I have described the Jivatma and the Paramatma to be one and the same. So just completely opposite of what the purpose of the Vedas were. You know, it's not to be merged into Krishna, think that we are Krishna, but we actually have to develop love for Krishna. But Krishna, you know, he's the absolute truth. He has all spiritual opulences. No one can be equal to or greater than him. And as we described, you know, Krishna is the absolute truth, and it's described that he is Brahman, yes, is Paramatma, and Bhagavan, is all those things. Vedanta Tattvavidas, Tattvamya Jnanam Advaryam, Brahmeti Paramatmeti, Bhagavan iti sabdhite. So the absolute truth, he's ultimately understood as Bhagavan. And all these other ones are partial understandings, the Paramatma and the impersonal Brahman. So Krishna is opulent in all excellence. There's no one can be greater than him. No one is equal to him. And this is described also, confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. In the 7th chapter, there's that verse, Mata Parantaram Nanyat Kinchirasti Dhananjaya, that, O conqueror of wealth, Arjuna, there's no truth superior to me. So this is Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this is whom we have to actually develop love for. And this is the topic of today's class here. So I'll go backwards here, which talks about these particular verses here. Narada Muni explaining to Vyasadeva, you know, Vyasadeva being despondent. So I'll read the verses again. If there's any comments or questions, we could bring it up. So like the sun, your goodness can travel everywhere in the three worlds, and like the air, you can penetrate the internal region of everyone. As such, you're as good as the all-pervasive Supersoul. Please therefore find out the deficiency in me, despite my being absorbed in transcendence under disciplinary regulations and vows. Śrī Nārada said, you have not actually broadcast the sublime and spotless glories of the Personality of Godhead. That philosophy which does not satisfy the transcendental senses of the Lord is considered worthless. So today's class, I'll try to explain how that philosophy which is worthless is going on today in the form of this Mayavad philosophy and misinterpreting the Vedanta Sutras in any way they like. But no, we have to see them as it is. That's why Prabhupada has Bhagavad Gita as it is, you know, the Srimad Bhagavatam as it is. Not interpretation, not change, not alterations, not any kind of additions. So, thank you for your kind attention, and if anybody has any comments or realizations.
Excellent class, Prabhu.
Thank you.
I've unmuted everybody already, so if anyone would like to ask a question or make a comment, you can unmute yourself at this time. Anyone?
So no animations today, but we've got, let's get to the pictures here. It's one of my favorites. Example, Virginia.
I have two kind of trivia small comments I wanted to make. One is, while you were giving class, I looked up the verse that you quoted. Srila Prabhupada quotes this verse often, and I just never bothered to look it up. Bhasyam Brahma Sutranam Vedartha Paribringitam. That is from the Garuda Purana, and it's also quoted by Jiva Goswami in the Sat Sandarbha. So, nice verse, boy. You should memorize that one. Bhasyam Brahma Sutranam Vedartha Paribringitam. The only word that I guess might be unfamiliar is paribringitam. I looked it up. It means to increase, to augment, or to strengthen something, so commentary. It's also, paribringitam refers to the roar of an elephant. So in other words, very strongly explaining the meaning of the Brahma Sutras. That is the Srimad Bhagavatam.
Jai. They were so fortunate. Thank you, Ramananda.
And I just had one other comment, and that was Anuvriti Shabdat. That there is a wonderful seminar that Bhakti Vijnana Swami has given. We've mentioned it a few times in our Sangha here. It's up on our website, and it's a 5-part seminar that he's entitled Anuvriti Shabdat. I didn't know where that term comes from, so it's from the Vedanta Sutra.
That's nice. He talks about the Vedanta Sutras?
Yes, but more specifically, this seminar is about transcendental sound. He delineates the strength of transcendental sound, how it can bring us back home, back to Godhead, because sound has manifested the material world. It keeps us in this material world, and it can also liberate us.
Yeah.
And so he named it Anuvriti Shabdat. I looked up Anuvriti. It means a final emancipation of the body, or when you don't return to the body again. So it means a finality. So the final or the goal of Shabda, of sound, is to become liberated, go back home, back to God.
Yeah. That's great. Right.
Gaudacandra Prabhu.
Yes, who's speaking?
Vidagdha Madhavadas here.
So,
just one comment. There's, so many different types of Vedantic scholars, and I would, to give, like Narhari Prabhu always likes to say, to give some balance to the equation. They're not all necessarily bluffers and cheaters. They may be more or less unfortunate for not coming in connection with a pure devotee of the Lord. But I was thinking while you were giving your class that Shankaracharya's gave a Buddhistic interpretation of Vedanta, and it served a purpose. It brought, many of those that were told to leave the books by Buddha back to the Vedas. And I was thinking it can be compared to, also compared to, the presentation in the modern age of communism and the evolution theory that give atheists a philosophy to avoid recognizing or serving Godhead. But unlike communism or evolution theory, Brahman is part of the non-dual substance, as mentioned in the purport by Prabhupada, Brahman, Paramatman, Bhagavan, and Prabhupada mentions that the bliss that's available in both Brahman and Paramatma are not equal to the bliss if one actually comes to glorify the personality of Godhead.
Yeah, like a water and cat.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's like the bliss compared to the water and the cat hoof print.
Right.
The cat.
Right, but but also different purports Prabhupada calls Brahman realized souls transcendentalists. So it's not that it's false. necessarily, but such persons in the pursuance of Brahman, there's a chance for them to also become purified if they're sincere, such as Prakasananda Saraswati and his sannyas disciples, as you mentioned in the class, were to speak of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who spent 7 days expounding Vedanta until Lord Chaitanya clued him in, that it's all, indirect and phantasmagoria, right? Yeah. So there's a chance for somebody from that position to be converted, whereas if somebody takes a hard stance, like the Dawkins and these atheists that are becoming more and more boisterous lately, thinking they're becoming more puffed up with the idea that that this evolution theory and this is rock solid, and anybody that thinks otherwise is mentally deficient. So their position's a little different. So anyway, I just thought I'd throw that in.
Nice, thank you. Yeah, actually, Lord Chaitanya said, or someone said in this chapter, I think I was reading, where he said anyone who follows this philosophy is actually crazy or insane, the word he used. It's interesting. But yeah, thank you, Prabhu. That was nice.
It was a nice purport, verse and purport that you brought up on the screen from Chaitanya Charitamrita. What was that verse?
That's the verse from the Adi Lila, chapter 7. And let me check here real quick for you, if I can find the exact quote for you. That was Adi 7, 106.
Okay.
Adi 7, 106. It's nice.
Thank you.
And then the whole chapter is just amazing. It explains everything, the whole Vedanta philosophy and the whole reason for it and all that. It's nice. And so many instructions to learn from Lord Chaitanya's humility and his obedience.
And that's one thing to say when somebody comes up with this Sariraka Bhashya by Sankaracharya, that there are many commentaries on Vedanta Sutra. That is one commentary, and it's just it's become popular because you don't have to get into surrendering. You can become like an armchair philosopher. You don't have to surrender.
But it's interesting in that same purport, it's a long purport, so I didn't put everything down, where Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur commented that while Vyasadeva was compiling the Vedanta Sutra, there were 7 of his great saintly contemporaries who were also engaged in similar work, like Atriya Rishi, Amsarantya, Odulomi, Karshnajini. He just mentions all these. There's like 6 or 7 different saintly persons were doing the same thing. So I thought that was interesting. I never heard that before. So yeah, any other comments, questions, realizations? Jai?
No, but wonderful class, Prabhu. Really, really good. Nice graphics, visuals, well-researched, good presentation. Nice to hear how to defeat Mayavad philosophy and what the purpose of the Vedanta teachings are.
Thank you so much. I didn't get time to put in some animations, but it's good. Sometimes when you have extra time, you could add a little more, make it look nice. But great, thank you so much, Ramananda. And
reminder for anyone who's online, tonight we are about 12 hours from now, we have Bhagavad Gita class with Bhakti Dhirodhammadar Swami if you want to listen in.
Jai.
So thank you very much, Prabhu, for your kind attention.
Jai.
Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Jai. Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Jai. Ki jai.
Haribo Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.